Good morning and welcome to the third quarter FSD Town Hall. It is my pleasure to introduce our director, Mr. Paul McMahon.
Hey, good morning, everybody. Please. This feels very strange. Welcome, everybody, here in the auditorium. We haven't done that for, some 2 years, which is great. We could have had up to 100 people in here today. We have a fair crowd, and I welcome you all here, as I also welcome those of you who are watching on the DoD television network today's town hall, not Teams, so we won't be able to have some of the back and forth. Then again, we won't have some of the problems with the microphones that we used to have on my end when we did those town halls. But I think we'll continue doing something like this in the future, because I think we'll have more people participating as we continue in this hybrid world we live in with COVID, and as we continue to respond to the pandemic, and as we continue to learn the lessons about teleworking and some of those things going forward as we move forward in the future, as we get used to COVID, as it shifts from a pandemic to endemic like the flu and all those kind of things. So welcome. We'll see how this works. And more people here. Obviously, I've taken my mask off, so I'm talking up here. The folks in the audience who appropriately, if they're within 6 feet of someone else, will be wearing their masks. And appropriately, with current guidance, they've all have brought in their paper copy of a 3150 because they've all been up to date on their shots, or if they haven't been vaccinated, they've got their test in the last 7 days showing that they are COVID negative. So welcome with all that. We continue as an organization to respond and support the Pentagon, the Mark Center, and our lease facilities with the things we've been doing over the last 2 years to make sure our workplaces stay safe for ourselves and are safe for our tenants and other employees who come and visit to the buildings. That's all been effective. It continues to be effective, and we'll continue to do that and take those lessons learned as we move forward into the future. We're continuing to do all of our work that we do, our day-to-day work. COVID was just part of it. Much work continues on as a result of your hard work and efforts, whether you're in the building, coming in, as many of you have done, or do it from telework. And we'll see in that with some of the awards we do later on. We recognize some people who can work from a telework perspective and still support the building and support the work that we do. That's been important. One of the things that we have been doing as part of that kind of work, and I give great credit to Engineering and Construction Management with support from Federal Facilities Division, is a major program initiative that's put into POM 24. So we'll start seeing a major increase in funding starting in FY24 for the Pentagon proper to the tune of $40 million a year to start doing restoration and modernization projects. What we talk about is, hey, the Pentagon renovation program did a lot of great work, spent billions of dollars, but they only took care of the Pentagon inside the 5 walls, A to E-ring. Major work, major effort, and very successful. But there's many other elements of the reservation that were built in some cases back in 42, 43, that need to be rebuilt, restored to the original conditions so we continue to support and operate the building for the next 50 years. So with a lot of great work over 10 years from Hal Creel's group and now Dave Westrick's group, in conjunction with Rob Walker's group to identify projects, we identified a list of projects needed to be done over a period of 6 years. Mr. Donnelly, the DA&M, has supported that request. It's included in POM 24 as a rent increase. So starting in 23 as we prepare for it, you all will start seeing the results of that in terms of work for us, in terms of executing projects, which is an ECM lead with support from FSD, as we always do, that will then lead to another part of the reservation that can support the next 50 years the mission of the Department of Defense. Tremendous achievement, supports the mission, supports the warfighter, and for those people participating in that effort, thanks. We all thank you for that work, and we're looking forward to the benefits of that over the next 10 years. Lastly, as we move forward, Ms. Miners has talked about, and we see some of that today, the thought that as we come out of how we worked in pandemic, realizing that a part of the new workplace is telework, but there still is great benefit to having people in at the appropriate times to meet with their customers, to meet with each other, to mentor new employees, to, as a new employee, come in and learn what it means to work for DoD. And this is this theme of your presence matters. Your presence matters in terms of those issues. It matters with your customers, many of which are in many of the times here. And really, in many ways, as I've talked about, it's sometimes hard to duplicate that in-person effect that you can get, the things that you can achieve, especially initially in a program or a project, that then pay off benefits in the long run with getting our work done. So those of us coming in will continue to come in. We'll take a look at how we need to be in the building to support that mission while we telework where it's possible. We have a town hall at the WHS level on the 25th of August, and I'm sure that Ms. Miners will discuss that some more. So again, welcome. We have a full-packed agenda today, so let's get on with it. So we see what that agenda looks like. We got there. I'm not going to read the slides. Hails and farewells. We're going to celebrate some. We're going to talk about what's going on broadly in FSD. And we've got closing remarks and a little bit of fun at the end. Next slide, Ernie. Okay. So, whoop, it went too far. Got to remember the hails. So, next slide. There we go. All right. We're having the clicker is a little bit touchy. So, new employees in this last quarter. We've had 12 new employees come in. We can all chuckle a bit on the right side about the third name down there, Dave Mayberry, who for a period of time was our Director of Space Portfolio Division. He has retired after many years of service to the country. But we brought him back the next day as a retired annuitant to continue to support us in the efforts of POSAS-2, which is a Pentagon Space Assignment Policy. We're going to reset the Pentagon, take advantage of lessons learned from telework, basically have the ability to bring in 4,000 more people assigned to work at the Pentagon because of telework and hoteling and those kind of things that we have today. Will allow us to reduce our lease space portfolio, reduce overhead costs while we continue to support the mission. But he was replaced, if you also look up here, by Ms. Holly Burnaby. Holly, you want to stand for a second? Burnaby, excuse me. Welcome aboard. Holly is our new director of the Space Portfolio Division. Holly comes to us from Army G9, doing a lot of great work over there for several years in support of real property initiatives, Army installations. Before that, she has significant experience with GSA in real estate portfolio management across a range of issues. So Holly is a great add to our team, will do great, and is already working her way into understanding SPD in the work they do day to day. So Holly, welcome. We look forward to having you on the team and to the great things that you and your team will continue to provide to us as we support the Pentagon. Next slide. Oop. There we go. Okay, obviously, sad part of every time is farewells and departures. And so in this last quarter, see those folks who have gone on. Those folks who have chosen to retire. You see that in bold. And other people who have left for other opportunities. We've talked about that before. That's good news and bad news for us. Bad news especially is we lose some great talent, okay? Good news is it's somewhat indicative that these people, especially the ones not in bold, have been able to achieve new jobs, in many cases, increased responsibilities, increased in grades, promotion, and all that, based on our continued support, as you've highlighted as a requirement from FEVS, of providing you the experience here and the training here to be able to go back and seek new challenges. So keep that in mind. We're going to miss them all dramatically here. And we see that effect as we try and fill vacancies. We had more people leave the organization that came in the last quarter. But your division directors work very hard with Ms. Crawford and Ms. Uphill and HRD to make sure we're moving quicker to refill some of these vacancies we have so that work can go on. So keep that part in mind. And I'll say three times in these slides, is a reminder for all of you as you're sitting down here now that it's up to you to work with your supervisors to develop those individual training plans, IDPs, to identify how you will need to improve and work on your skill sets to do your current job, which will also help prepare you for future jobs. Because we want you to be able to have a promotion, whether it's inside or outside, to move on to new challenges if that's your desire. We have the funding and the time available to make that happen. So make sure that's in your plan every year. Here's the training and educational development I'm going to take to improve myself as I move forward. Last thing on this slide before I go, it's not on here, but we won't have this meeting again for 3 months. So I'd be remiss not to mention that in August, some guy named Bob Candido, one or two of you may know who Bob Candido is finally retiring. His wife said, enough's enough. I have a list of things that you at home. By the way, we have to go on a cruise for 3 weeks. And so after many years of service to the country, both as an Army Corps of Engineer officer and then coming here, I think basically just before 9/11 is when he started working for the Pentagon as a Deputy Pentagon Building Manager. Bob is going to move on. And I think at some 50 years of service, we're going to basically celebrate that on August 25th. Hopefully you all can join us wherever Bob decides to have the ceremony. But it'll be in the Pentagon to come and wish him well as he moves forward. Mr. Walker has a good succession plan in place to at least have people in the seats. We all know it's going to be very hard to replace Bob Candido. He will be missed. But Bob, if you're watching here online out there, We are going to miss you, but we're looking forward to the 25th, and we will remark on your departure appropriately. Okay. Next, people and successes. Next slide. So, as we've talked about before, we always do, we talked about that impact of training and experience and education to prepare for new jobs, and we continue to see here the impact and success of that process and our continuing desire to look internally for people to promote up into openings as they occur. So what you see in the last quarter is people who work for us today have received promotions within FSD to take on new challenges, new opportunities, a large number of people, and that results from the work they've done, the way they've done it, and their continuing ability to show increased development in their personal skill sets to work in these new jobs. So all of you on this list, congratulations. We're glad you chose to stay with FSD, and we will continue to look for great things from you as you take on your new responsibilities. Next slide. Your directors work very hard to make sure we recognize people who do great things for us, and with, in addition to just their performance plans, but with individual awards to recognize specific successes. I just want to highlight by name these employees on this list who received individual awards for outstanding efforts during the third quarter. They've led by example. They've worked hard. They've taken on additional tasks as part of their regular day-to-day jobs to improve the way we do business and to improve our support and delivery of products to our customers. So congratulations to all of you. Next slide. I also want to recognize, we'll have several here, group awards, where we have groups of WHS FSD employees who band together to get great work done. So you see we're going to go through a couple of slides. We'll talk about each one of them. The first one, PMSP, Mechanical Shop Group Award. They basically took a look. Whoop. Too quick, Arnie. They had a major project. This is the third shift, okay? We work here 24/7. And those third shift folks are critical to the work we do, not just being here ready to respond to emergencies, but actually can take on projects. And in this case, this group here took on a project down in the tunnels around A&E Drive, around the A-ring. An area we had a domestic hot water heater that was providing support up there to the Market Basket and other concessionaires on that floor with water heaters that were outlived their useful life. But we had challenges of how we're going to get it done. We thought we'd do it by contract, but PMSP took a look at the project, said we can do this project in-house. And third shift said we can take this project on. So they took a look at a project. They looked at the material available. We were putting additional piping down there to support our mission-critical utilities, which was going to make challenges for getting material in and out. So they changed the design of the hot water heaters going down there to work around that and provide future support and access to the space. And then they got the job done. So they replaced a 20-year-old domestic hot water heater with new hot water heaters that were current, state-of-the-art, smaller in size, and they probably saved us $150,000 by avoiding contract work, made sure that we avoided the chance of losing domestic hot water for part of the building, because that's important, and kept the work moving. So great initiative on their part, great planning, great execution, reducing our cost of implementing a major repair. And since it's a new hot water heater, they're also going to reduce our, going forward, utility costs as we deliver buildings. So to Kimberly, to John, and to Mr. Beards there especially, thank you for a job well done. RSA, that's part of the back of stage fight. Those are the folks who manage our money. Okay, those folks during a time of high absenteeism, job loss and vacancies in their group, as they manage money, they pulled together like they have been for a year to make sure that we continue to manage transfer of money, acceptance of money, obligation of money, so that A, our customers can know their money is being spent properly, and more critically that folks, especially AWG, but also a good part of FFD, had money in hand to execute contract work and contract projects to meet the timelines we committed to our customers. So Lisa, Hortensia, and Brigida, thank you very much for the work you do. Next slide. The BOC, just a whole range of folks here. And we'll mention that Lisa Pascalupi will be in the next quarter, is also leaving us after many years going to FEMA to continue to do the great work there. But this group of people over 2 years, but especially over the last quarter, continue to be the cog for the overall response we have for disinfecting, cleaning for the reservation during COVID. So they, day to day, doesn't matter what time of day or night, when we had a request comes in for disinfecting, cleaning, they made sure that we receive that request, and that we schedule completion of that request working with the customer, working with contract shops through PBMO, or working through PSSP in many times because they respond very quickly, got up to spaces that required disinfectant cleaning because they had a positive case and got it done. So without them working through, understanding that process, putting it in place and making sure it executed day to day, we couldn't respond to the building like we did. So to the Bach Group and to Lisa, who works in EM, thank you for the work you've done, and thanks for your continued work, because in addition to that, you kept the day-to-day work of supporting the building with response to emergency tickets and to routine service tickets got done in a way that allowed us to be effective. Next slide. PHRP, same issue, same challenges, same opportunities. You know, they provide all the steam and all the chill water for the building, also manage some other key utilities, including sewage treatment water and sewage pumping operations. They've worked very hard over the last year, and they continue to show it in the last quarter, managing to do their work in spite of continuing vacancies over there. If you know somebody who wants to be a boiler plant operator or chill water operator, have them see Rob Walker. He's always looking for people to bring in and bring into very important critical jobs, and again with great training programs and development and licensing programs when we bring them aboard. But without their hard work over the last couple years, working 24/7, we would have had problems delivering chill water and hot steam and hot water to the reservation. They figured out how to work around the vacancies, change schedules, get training done, and provide that support. So we thank you all for the work you've done. You've done it in a safe manner. You've done it with following your current protocols for safety and for critical operations, and we never drop the load. So thank you, team. Next slide. Length of service. So there'll be some additional recognitions for some of these folks at the 25 August WHS Town Hall. But I just want to recognize for here some folks with their service. You see the list here, 40 years, great long time. One in LFD, Tracy and Tobias, in their service. Want to recognize Renee and Michael Little, who have achieved 35 years of service, and we'll have appropriate certificates and pins that when they're available, you'll see those. And 30 years, you know, Ted Burka, Mr. Burka, I see just routinely at all of our weekend events, major events. I know he's a critical cog in providing that support. And Lily in FFD provides her support as in DPO, as a male assistant. All these folks continue to provide that day-to-day work to make sure that we support the building. So congratulations on the length of service. Next slide. Continuing on, James King and Dave Westrick, 20 years of federal service, in addition to the other work they do. Antonio Hood, Frank Marbley, 15 years, and Alicia Kennedy, one of those back-of-stage folks who help manage funding for SPD and take care of other administrative workload projects to make them happen, has got 10 years of service. So that's a little round of thanks, congratulations for all these length of service awardees. Okay, next slide. Okay, Kwanzaa.
And now we'll recognize FSD Quarterly Employee Recognition. Employees, craftsmen, and supervisors are nominated for setting standards of excellence and innovation that have the greatest impact on our organization during each fiscal year. And now the nominees for Employee of Second Quarter, CY22, Antoine Lee, FFD, Mark Ogburn, ECM, Leonard Saratan, FFD, and James Johnson, ECM. And now for the winner of the Employee of Second Quarter, CY22, Mr. Leonard Saratan, FFD. Mr. Saratan is being presented with a certificate and plaque for providing outstanding leadership to the Bach personnel by leading the execution of the change in operation time of the Pentagon FPIUs and AHU units. Mr. Saratan's plan of action to filter the 3,000 individual function items to a manageable 450 functional items led to a reduction in the projected time of completion. He excelled in creative thinking, and his innovative efforts and positive work relationships enabled a cost savings of $133,000.
I know many people in FFD and LFD who work building operations understand what we just talked about doing, but think about what we said, 3,000 points to 400 points in terms of the HVAC system to be adjusted. We want to make major changes to how we provide HVAC support to the Pentagon. Why is that important? This was really a fallout for what we did in COVID, and we had to take a look at, we need to change the hours of operation for how we run the HVAC system. Instead of maybe for 10 or 12 hours a day of running all those HVAC units, running air handlers, running FPIUs, VAVs in there, they would initially have to go back and change 3,000 separate points in our control system. But the work that Leonard did here allows them to dial it down to 400. So when we have to change what we operate, sometimes individual units, he set up a way to make it much more efficient and much easier to do. Again, allows us to keep the building safe, allows us to support building operations. So I can't imagine what it took to make that happen, but Leonard, that was a fantastic effort. Thank you very much.
And now for the nominees for Craftsman of Second Quarter CY22. Mr. Curtis Ashton, Sr., Leonard C. Proctor, Ryan Appel, Jonathan Brillhart, Matthew Carter, Mark Moore, Christopher Schweitzer. And the winner for the Craftsman of Second Quarter, Mr. Leonard C. Proctor. Mr. Proctor is receiving a certificate and plaque for his leadership and high degree of initiative and integrity were displayed as he volunteered to take lead on ensuring the success of the restoration of the monumental stairs at 64E. Mr. Proctor demonstrated technical and operational knowledge to coordinate materials, equipment, personnel, and schedules. He ensured the high-profile project was ahead of schedule. And Mr. Proctor has also displayed a customer-first positive attitude as he has been instrumental in the COVID-19 sanitation efforts for the entire Pentagon reservation.
Leonard, thanks for what you do as you walk down and you list those two efforts. So it was kind of a mention at the end, but certainly the continuing support from PSSP and what they do in response for COVID and their ability to turn out quickly, whether it's for preventive disinfecting or for disinfecting as a result of a positive case. When the contractors weren't available, we always knew we could fall back on PSSP and they would be up there quickly, almost at a sprint to get work done, especially up in the Secretary's offices, Deputy Secretary of Defense's offices, and they certainly saw and appreciate that, knowing that you guys could turn to. The monumental stairs, that's an historic element of the Pentagon, and you read about it a lot of times in the books and the history of the Pentagon of how they were selected, how they were built, and that's where we get many visitors coming in, distinguished visitors, foreign visitors, defense ministers, those kinds come into the building through the entrance and up those monumental stairs, and they've restored the original condition and appearance of them to really put the Pentagon in the best light when people come to visit. It becomes an element, it becomes a historic element, and people aren't looking saying, well, gee, it looks kind of beat up. Now it looks the way it needs to look, and that's because of the efforts of the shops and people like Mr. Proctor. Thank you, sir.
And now for the nominee and winner for Supervisor of Second Quarter CY22, Mr. Muhammad Yawawi. Mr. Yawawi is receiving a certificate and plaque for demonstrating exemplary leadership skills in the Defense Post Office as he ensured all mandatory training was completed for his employees. He also encouraged personal growth development opportunities. Mr. Yawawi's enthusiasm has been recognized by the Air Force administrators due to his continued commitment to train their mailroom staff on a biweekly basis. These training efforts have reduced the Air Force's official mail expenditures on a monthly total savings of over $3,000. His continued aspiration to be the best-in-class service section highlights WHS FSD as leading the way for world-class customer service.
So I said I'd be drumbeating this thing several times today. So you heard one of the things in there when Kwanzaa brought it up. I heard a woohoo out in the field. Must have been Rosalind. But part of the reason he was recognized as supervisor for making sure he's providing those training opportunities for his employees. And so that's our commitment at the leadership council level, myself and the division directors, conveying down to our supervisors to make sure they are sitting down with their employees, establishing those IDPs and making sure that they're supporting they get done. So it's not just a matter of signing an IDP with your employee, for my supervisors out there, but then work through the year with your employee to make sure that they are scheduling that training, you're giving them time to take that training, and they're getting it done. Not the mandatory training, and I've got most of my training done for August, 2 courses left. I'll get my mandatory training done, get yours done. But those training programs that are part of your individual development, okay, those courses you need to do your current job, education, prepare you for future jobs, and Mohammed's doing a great job making that done. The second part about all this in his program is in the things he's done to improve the services provided by the Defense Post Office for our customers. And see that recognition from the Air Force of what we're doing. We reduced their cost of operations. We've improved our delivery services to the Air Force to the extent that one of the things the Defense Post Office is doing, and I'm waiting Mr. Walker, I think, for the final MOA, the Air Force is talking about turning over their internal mail system in the Pentagon to the Defense Post Office, which probably supports DoD instructions on how mail should be handled, but also continue to provide them better service at reduced cost. It's all because of the efforts of folks like Mohammed to make that happen. I've seen the draft MOA, the Air Force has occurred, and so we're going to do that and take on additional work within DPO, within FSD, with our current, and get it done within our available resources and save our customers some money, save them some time, improve services. So those are the kind of things we continue to focus on. Folks like Mohammed and Mr. Yowie are making it happen. So thank you, sir.
And now for the WHS Quarterly Directors Award. The Directors Award is intended to recognize excellence in overall work performance of individual accomplishments. Contributions being recognized within the competitive WHS Directors Award must significantly go beyond regular duty requirements and embody the WHS vision of providing essential and superior personnel services in support of the mission of our DoD customers. And the nominees for the WHS Directors Award first quarter, Category 2, Dylan Nguyen, FFD, Robert Burr, LFD, Clifford Webb, FFD, and for Category 3, Christina Hayunga, DMD. And now for the WHS Directors Award second quarter CY22 nominees. Category 1, Latasha Gordon, FFD, Christopher Jennings, FFD, Antoine Lee, Ryan Appel, Kevin Stevens, FFD. For Category 3, St. Pettiford, DMD, Wade Lay, SCD, Blind Arfan, SPD, Kenneth, in Category 4, Kenneth Gordon, FFD, Thomas Hayden, FFD. Congratulations.
So presumably, some portion of those folks will be, we'll find out who the WHS employees of the quarters are at the next town hall on 25th August. We do great work, and so I'm hoping to see some recognition at the higher levels when that happens, so congratulations to all of them. Next, we're going to have some folks come up from the various divisions and talk about what they're doing to support the building and support our tenants. So I will turn it back over to Kwanzaa and them. Kwanzaa?
Thank you, sir. And now for our next presenter, ECM, Mr. Will Hafner.
Morning, everyone. Today I'm presenting a project which is a renovation of the former Bank of America space to accommodate the Di Lorenzo Pentagon Health Clinic Pharmacy. The original pharmacy, the existing pharmacy that's located down the health clinic, due to its limited size, they were no longer able to expand their services or accommodate additional equipment and upgrades to their existing equipment. The former Bank of America space was a perfect fit for us to be able to renovate that space to provide a lot of the additional support that the pharmacy needed to expand their services to the Pentagon here. This was a joint venture project that we worked with the Corps of Engineers Huntsville office in developing the designs in concert with all the requirements of the pharmacy folks. And as a result, the new pharmacy has an actual customer service area, a consultation office, a prescription processing area, a prescription preparation area, a director's office, a substantially increased size in the prescription storage and supply area, plenty of space for additional refrigeration systems for medical prescriptions, a staff work area, and an automated ATM sort of prescription dispensing machine, which is located right off of the main concourse. This project was awarded back in September of 2020, and the contractor will be finished with the actual construction portion of this project by the end of this month. That will be followed by the installation of the pharmacy, various pharmacy security systems, and once that has taken place, then the pharmacy staff at the existing clinic will be able to then relocate to the new facility along with some of their equipment, and then they'll be able to resume their operation. We do anticipate that occurring sometime in the September, possibly October timeframe. Thank you.
And now for our next presenter, ECM's Mr. Randy Castro.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Randy Castro, and it is my pleasure to be speaking to you today on the Repair Pentagon Transit Center, or PTC, Bridge Project. The project is one of the original structures first built approximately in the 1940s. As such, the bridge is nearing the end of its lifespan. The project will address structural, drainage, waterproofing, and roadway pavement repairs, to name a few. The comprehensive list of repairs will extend the lifespan of the bridge for approximately 30 or so more years. The project can be divided into two main areas of work, the top side and underside of the PTC bridge. And we are currently working on the top side, which is further broken out into 5 phases in order to limit the impact to our commuters and bus riders. Close coordination with both Transportation Management Program Office, TMPO, and our bus transit providers has and will continue to occur for a smooth operation. The project was awarded back in October 2021, and we're currently targeting completion October 2023. Thank you for your time.
And now for our next presenter, ECM's Ms. Edith Cordova.
Good day, everybody, and welcome. My name is Edith Cordova, and today I will be presenting to you the Corridor 8 project. The new Corridor 8 pedestrian access control point will be located adjacent to the Pentagon Library and Conference Center, also known as the PLC-2, between the Corridor 8 bridge and the North Secure parking lot. The Corridor 8 pedestrian access control point will be a 2,800 square foot facility which will include employee and visitors screening areas, improve safety and security of police officers, visitors, and building occupants. This project includes the demolition and replacement of the existing temporary screening facilities, which are currently located at the Corridor 8 bridge entrance. The new facility will include the construction of new screening facilities, retaining walls, new fencing, new sidewalks, and a bioretention area. To accommodate the pedestrian traffic during the construction and to minimize the impact to the Corridor 8 entrance, a new elevated walkway has been constructed, and it was built to provide a safe and secure access to the Corridor 8 entrance. To accommodate visitors and occupants with accessibility limitations, the Corridor 8 basement entrance will be activated to provide access within the same level of the parking lot. The project has been divided in 3 phases. Phase 1 was the construction of the elevated walkway, which has been completed. Phase 2, it includes the demolition and the installation of the site utilities. The demolition has been completed, and the site utilities will be starting on Monday of next week. Phase 3 will include the construction of the building itself, and substantial completion has been scheduled for July of 2023. Thank you so much.
And now moving on to major project accomplishments. Our next presenter is Mr. Tim Meleson, SCD.
Yeah, I was hoping I didn't want to be the first person to trip up the steps. Tim Meleson with the Occupational Safety Health Branch, and I'm filling in for Craig George, Director, SCD today. From the Environmental Sustainability and Energy Branch, they report that the PSOC has achieved LEED Gold. Achieving LEED Gold is from the Green Building Council. It's a very challenging designation to achieve. It goes with energy, and there's an environmental component of that, but the environmental component has a large component that is specifically on healthy building. And as we've lived 2.5+ years through COVID, when you go to LEED Gold, there's even additional safety and health measures for the occupants of the building. So as both the Mark Center and the Pentagon move in this direction, that's another great achievement to have underneath our belts. They continue to monitor our wastewater discharge for COVID. This data stream gives building leadership a heads up on upcoming trends and cycles, and that's going to continue. Then last but not least, both the Pentagon and Mark Center have successfully completed recent audits by Virginia DEQ to show all their compliance components are where they should be and in place and functioning. Office of the Pentagon Fire Marshal has just completed their annual fire drills. They've been on hiatus since 2019, again, COVID related. So they're back in the saddle there. They had great participation. And probably more importantly, a lot of folks reaching out that may have needed new maps or wanted additional training, and they were there to not only provide but assist in that. So thank you, OPM. Last but not least, my group, we're just about to kick off a large, comprehensive reevaluation of all the Pentagon confined spaces. Very, very large project. We have over 1,500 spaces on the reservation, both internal and external. We lose some spaces every year as we build, and we gain some spaces every year as we build. So we'll add those to the list, make sure they're all correct in the GIS system, that all the naming nomenclatures are the same. So when we talk a space, everyone talks the same thing. So it really benefits multiple divisions on the reservation. Thank you.
Our next presenter is Mr. Rob Walker.
Ooh. Wow, that's far. They have better eyes than me. Good morning, everybody. So I guess a few things I want to acknowledge from the team. Obviously, FFD is one of the bigger, it is the biggest division in the Directorate. So therefore, we've accomplished and we've maneuvered through the reservation with a lot of targets and bullseyes, and sometimes it doesn't seem like we get recognized enough, and some of the workforce feel like, when things go wrong, everybody knows who we are, but when things goes great, where are we? So this is one of the times that I do want to appreciate, truly say I appreciate the FFD staff, and doing an SPQA, which is the Senate Productivity and Quality Award, something that Adrian Upshur did previous to me for the last 6 years. And now pretty much I took on that challenge of this year. And the person who was responsible for getting us through this last year since my return was Kenneth Gordon. It was a heck of a challenge, a lot of work. Managers and supervisors, I beat up on them, literally weekly, daily, to get through interviews, making sure our metrics is in place, make sure our processes were in place, in preparation for the interviews from this SPQA team. And then when the SPQA team came on board and they audited all our processes, had interviews with the workforce, had interviews with the workforce, and they had to actually regurgitate everything that impacted them. And they actually were evaluated. It was tough. It was extremely tough. Saying all that, we received the second highest award. There are several levels of awards in SPQA, and we actually received the second highest award, which is called the 2022 Achievement Award. There's a ceremony later on in the next couple months that will be officially presented to us, but they gave us the announcement a couple weeks ago saying that we were the winner. They were impressed the way we operate here on the Pentagon Reservation. They were awed by a lot of the innovation that we've done on the Pentagon Reservation, how we work well with each other. Now, clearly we understand that we have our internal challenges. Things were recognized, not just the positive things, but actually the deficiencies, because that's part of the report that I get back. Hear all the great things that you do, hear all the things that you can work on. So we continue to go through this process improvement, so we know the things that we have to work on. We actually today have a feedback session with their team, so things as we've reviewed the report and say, okay, we agree with most of these things, but can you give us better clarity on it? So it's definitely a continuous process improvement. I'm going to say situation for all of FFD. This will be expanded, but once again, we couldn't have done this without all the participation from the lowest wage grade person to the most senior GS person within FFD. Really, I just want to say thank you all for all your hard work and dedication. Boy, that's far. I'm trying to get my sheet, see what's next. These glasses don't work well. I need the distance reading glasses. All right, the next thing that we actually did was the drinking water fountains. So PMSP, so we talked about PSSP, that's the Pentagon Structural Systems Program. They handle all the structural floors, ceilings, walls, carpet replacement for the Pentagon Reservation. Then there's PMSP, which is the Mechanical Systems Program. So essentially, that's all your mechanical systems, plumbing, water, domestic hot water, chilled water, steam, et cetera, et cetera. Well, that team has started installing the drinking water fountains around the Pentagon Reservation. They started on quarter 5. They're doing floors 1 through 5, and they're working their way around 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 1, and 2, going to wedges. You will see them on D ring, A ring, and D ring. So each floor. So our customers have a place to actually fill up their bottles. The biggest thing I want to share with everybody is in each wedge of the building, there actually are chiller systems for those drinking water fountain systems. They're actually filtered systems, just like you actually have your filter systems that you bring into your offices and you have filtered water. The Pentagon water is a filtered system. It's regular PM'd, annual inspections, so safe water, clean water. The safety office works with us to make sure we all do the right thing here. They have inspections, but this project should be completed in the next several months. Our customers are happy, and you should start seeing more of this. If you see a visual somewhere to the left or right, that's what they look like, and that's a total blue-collar workforce effort. It's not a contracted effort. All right. So, Mr. Holmes, sincere team, definitely appreciate all the hard work. PHRP, that's the heat and refrigeration plant. So in July 15 through 17, so it was that weekend, we decided we wanted to test all of the valves in what is essentially the steam valves around the reservation that's in our C-cut. What that does is for safety. So we knew we had some repairs to make. We knew we had some critical things that's failed over the course of the last year. So in the process of saying just making the repairs, let's see if this system works. This system allows us to isolate just in case of emergency or catastrophic failure for steam, make sure that the valves actually open and close the way they're supposed to, and make sure the controls on that are actually operating properly. So with that, we test the sequence of operation, make sure it worked properly, and then during that test, we discovered leaks, failed gaskets, and we had to replace steam traps. So all of those activities were actually executed during the weekend, doing essentially a 3-day outage. So that was essentially working around the clock for those 3 days to actually execute those, not just the test, but actually execute those repairs. And Mark Abels and his team led that effort. Great work, H&RP. So the Air Force Anniversary Project. So on the ninth corridor, 4th floor, that's kind of the highlight corridor for the Air Force. And for the 75th anniversary, they're celebrating in September, they wanted to change that corridor. AWG takes on many, many tasks, high-profile tasks throughout the year. This specific task came to them. They had a timeline because not just their work, being able to paint, relocate outlets. The Air Force had to bring their team in to actually do some installation, some custom install work. So they had to meet a timeline. Based on all of those moving parts and those efforts, the AWG was able to complete their work ahead of time so the Air Force can get in there and start doing those installations. Air Force are probably about 3/4 of the installations. You can go up there now and kind of see some of the work they've done, pretty much honoring their 75-year history. The work was awesome. AWG did a heck of a job as usual. Once again, that's one of our biggest customer-facing group. They get beat up all the time, but I'll tell you, they do fantastic work. The biggest thing is I want to tell AWG, appreciate all the hard work. Keep doing it. And obviously, as you walk around the Pentagon Reservation, you see a lot of their work. Good job. Well done. And last but not least, FBSO has been working with the shops. Well, for the people who don't know, in PBMO, the mechanics use a PDA to actually execute work around the reservation. So the box sends in a work order goes to the supervisor pushes it out to the mechanic, mechanic pulls it up on their PDA, that's how they respond. FBSO say, okay, we can come up with a more efficient way, because the PDAs, we've had some challenges over the years on connectivity, Wi-Fi, things like that. I mean, just like your cell phone around here, there's been some challenges. We do actually have, obviously, most of y'all know we have a Wi-Fi network inside the Pentagon Reservation now. FBSL said, okay, PDAs are kind of going out, everybody's going to iPhones or some type of Android device. So we've actually brought in a process where we actually have iPhones. We had 6 mechanics that we tried out at the different shops and actually moving the PDA workflow onto the iPhone. We did a pilot for those for roughly a month. The pilot itself was successful. Obviously, our younger workforce is extremely comfortable working with the iPhones, so that was a win-win. But because the pilot itself is successful, now we have to really move into how do we get iPhones for the entire blue-collar workforce. For most people, some of you all are new, really don't know how big FFD is. FFD is rough, I mean, without vacancies, I'm almost 300 people. Without vacancies, I think I'm like 200, 280, 290. Half of that, about roughly 150 of them, are actually a blue-collar workforce. So just to understand the magnitude of the blue-collar workforce is here doing work, executing work on the Pentagon Reservation, and being able to get iPhones for all of those. So we have to work through those challenges, and not just getting iPhones, how are we going to truly communicate, where are we going to put the devices in the mechanical spaces so they can always get updates and always be able to respond, so we can respond to our customers. So more to come on that, but just to let you know, the pilot itself was definitely a success. And I think that's it. I can read now. All right. And once again, thank you.
And now our next presenter, Mr. Roy Dodson, LFD.
Good morning, FSD. How are you? Like Kwanzaa said, I'm Roy Dodson. I'm the Mark Center Building Manager, and I'm here to talk to you just a little bit about some accomplishments that Lease Facilities Division does here for FSD. The Mark Center is a little bit different than what the Pentagon is. We have a boss contractor that actually does a lot of our maintenance and operations within the Mark Center. Like Mr. Walker was talking, his staff handles the majority of that here at the Pentagon. The Mark Center has a service contract. Well, for the past 10 years, we have never been able to have a service contract that has been fully funded, and we have been scraping together and trying to make the cleanse and the costs line up, and we finally this year, at the new award of the service contract, we're able to have that funding was obtained. It was able to be put together, put on the contract for the first time in the existence of the Mark Center. So that was a huge accomplishment for us. It allows us to function as an organization, and it makes us feel a little bit more comfortable when we go paying the bills. So. Another thing that we want to talk about is facility-related control systems. So in 2020, the Mark Center was handed some doting requests about keeping our cybersecurity up to date. Well, we hadn't heard anything about that for such a long time, and all of a sudden in 2020, this was dropped on us. So we took the bull by the horns, and with a team that was created in OMB, they took our cybersecurity risk score from a D to an A within those 2 years. So we're constantly working on this FRCS control. It's being stood up, it's being monitored and maintained now. So that was a huge success for the Mark Center. So it puts us on the map in cybersecurity. Another huge accomplishment for Lease Facilities Division was a property management inventory. We have a lot of property that has been managed to a certain point, but a lot of people were looking at it, needed to see a little bit more actions done. So we actually did a property management or an audit on our property management for the property that we have is a little bit like $1.3 million last year was accounted for. So huge accomplishment at the Mark Center again, establishing control over the properties that we own. And then another one, again, there's a few over here for at least Facilities Division. We have a boiler plant that we run as well. It's 6 boilers that we have at the Mark Center, and we've had some issues with maintaining those properly. So we have established a IPT for the boilers, which allows us to collaborate with the boss contractor, with some of the SMEs, to establish the proper operating procedures and to allow the boilers to sustain the building and last longer than what the road that they were going down lately wasn't going to happen. So we've been successful with that. Well, this is a big one for our lease building services, and I know it for a lot of folks probably don't realize, but when Mr. Scott Morse took over for LBS side here at LFD, he had a huge turnover of team members, and he is now fully staffed and executing all the lease facilities within the NCR, which, again, it may not sound big to most folks, but I can tell you it was huge for Mr. Morris. So the last thing that I'd like to talk about, too, is I'd like to recognize that the Mark Center, we have an ATF, the physical security refresher in our COVID environment was lacking a little bit, and working with PFPA, LFD, IMT, OMB, we were able to have a refresher course, and we actually had about 400 attendees in this course. So that was a huge accomplishment, and it's allowed us now to start to visualize what it's looking like coming out of our COVID environment and helping our customers here at the Mark Center. So I appreciate you guys listening to me. Thank you so much.
And now Mr. McMahon will give us highlights on organizational news.
Okay, thanks. Before we go on, don't press the button yet, Ernie. Thanks for all those folks talking about the things that they do. We just touched not all of, I think, FSD. We've missed a couple ones. We'll get them up in the future, but a lot of work going on every day at a variety of levels to make sure that we operate these buildings, depending on the Mark Center or lease facilities, to meet the needs of our customers. We provide new space. We maintain existing space. We develop new processes to support this whole issue that Mr. Walker talked about getting the iPhones in there to allow us to get mechanics work orders timely so work is executed when they come in, especially those emergency calls. Absolutely valuable as we move forward to provide services, along with the other things you see going on. The work over in LFD, we didn't even talk about space portfolio and the work they do, providing new spaces for tenants and missions as the mission of the Pentagon grows as we get new assignments. So congratulations to all of you. Now, moving on to organizational news. Want to talk a bit, next slide, about where FSD is heading. Many of you have been watching the work of your division directors and some of your GS-14 subject matter experts to take a look at what FSD does and how we can do it better. And that's what I want to talk about today as we continue to take a look at implementing this change. So, seeing up the slides, first off is why are we taking a look at how we're organized and how we operate. This organizational structure, FSD, is a bit over 10 years old. We stood up in 2011, coming out of BRAC 133 and coming out of the Pentagon renovation, and combining those organizations back then, DFD, Defense Facilities Directorate, the BRAC 133 Program Office, and the Pentagon Renovation Program Office, and established a structure that we've been in since about, like I said, September 2011. So we started taking a look, as I came in as a new director, about that organization. Are we really organized and structured to best support all of you to provide outstanding services to our customer? We've had some mission changes. We've had ISD, the old Pentagon Services Division, as you remember, moved over to work underneath the Executive Services Directorate. We took on a major mission with Defense Contract Management Agency in terms of providing support and management support for their many facilities across the United States where they provide contract QA for all those vendors providing major weapons systems and other major projects to the Department of Defense. And we've actually made major savings in their functions and their organization as we took on that group of people in DCMA down at Fort Lee doing work. just a couple of changes. We've seen some other examples across the board of how we've done that. We've had staffing changes. People have changed. People have retired. New people have come aboard in the organizational structure with new ideas and new approaches to how we get work done. And frankly, lastly, the pandemic. And we could keep talking about that. And I know after 2.5 years ago, we're still talking the pandemic. But really our response to it as an organization and facility services and the way the Pentagon operates and our tenants operate and the way we operate have changed dramatically. And it affects the efforts of what we do in FSD to respond and to adapt both to that and to additional challenges. And so we need to be sensitive to that and take advantage of the lessons learned we've had over these last 2.5 years. So it really is the right time to ask ourselves, are we really structured to support our efforts, your efforts, to provide outstanding service to our customers? We need to find out ways, we think there's opportunities to work more efficiently and be more effective in a way that makes sense using process improvement by looking at those organizational changes and being able to prove it going in and coming out the tail end with qualitative and quantitative facts and metrics to show how we've taken advantage of it. We need to focus on how we can improve delivery timely, not necessarily quicker, but timely, meaning commitments to our customers, knowing our processes, what we can achieve, what our customer challenges are, making those happen, and then make those hard commitments that we can then hold to as we deliver products to our customers, and improve internal communications. How do we talk to ourselves internally as we get work done? In many ways, we have processes and work requirements across divisions, sometimes 2 or 3 divisions, to get work done. Can we change the way we look at that and do that so we can reduce that internal communication challenges and improve our work delivery? Because many times we do see, well, I can't get this done because I'm waiting for this from the other division. The other division says, well, I need this other division. How do we resolve those problems? So you see how we're doing that up top. You know, we're improving processes. Our teams are changing. And we're going to try and change what we're doing from 10 years ago. Next slide. There we go. Great. We're going to get a new clicker. That's our first process change. So first off, we have to take a look at who the stakeholders are in the process. And those are 2 groups. Obviously and always, it's our customers. Okay, we keep saying customers. I'm going to have a little commercial advertisement today. We also take a look at customers, and more importantly, we take a look at the tenants of the building as our clients. Okay, and what's the distinction? Customers is really that transactional process delivery. In many ways, for us, what's a customer? Well, I've got a light out in the hallway, or I've got a toilet leaking, those kind of things. Those are customers, and those are important, but those are transactional. And in many cases, in many ways, people can go sometimes to a different person to get that work done. What's a client? A client is what we do a lot of. We saw a lot of that today. That's a professional relationship, professional to professional. We're providing advice, support, cooperation with a client to deliver work. Think about your doctor. Think about your accountant, your CPA. Okay? Think about other people that you use day to day in your business and personal lives. We've established a long-term relationship in terms of what you need to do, what they provide and help you. That's what we do. We are clients. We are professional partners with the tenants of the building, whether it's that craft person down in one of those shops that Mr. Walker talked about, up to engineers in ECM, to leadership in FSD and FFD, space portfolio planners, lease facilities. We've established that relationship, and that's what we're trying to look to build on. We support a wide range of customers, not just across the Pentagon, but we also have the Mark Center, lease space, many military bases across the country, and actually Raven Rock, because we do provide support up to Raven Rock and to the installation commander there as they get their job done. Our customers share feedback with us as we take a look at how we get it done. They provide positive reports on quality. They're eager for us to improve on timeliness and in some cases on cost. Accurate cost, not necessarily cheaper, not quickest and timely, but to meet those commitments, because a lot of times for them as we work that professional client relationship, they're also coordinating, especially for projects, whether it's AWG or ECM or space portfolio, but they're working with their internal organizations to buy furniture to support, in conjunction with those projects. They're working with PFPA for security improvements, all those tied together. And so they are looking for that timely information, that timely delivery of services at a cost that we can commit to and that we can achieve. Each of you, our FSD employees, are important to the mission of making those things happen. You've got great competencies. You're professional in your approach and how you work with your customers and your clients. You demonstrate it routinely. and you should demonstrate, and I hear about it a lot, about how much you care about the mission of the Pentagon and your role in doing that and your support, and your customers see it every day. And we got to keep focused on that, that it's not for us as a mission about providing facility services, but in terms of what we do to support the warfighter that comes through the Pentagon occupants. We listen to your feedback. We've done that through FEVs. We do that through other opportunities, even today. And I appreciate the work that you did. Hopefully many of you went through and did this last round of FEVs. Just like last year, we take a look at those FEV surveys and the things and the comments you make to us, and we incorporate that into our strategic plans and our business plans and facility services to improve. You saw that last year in our commitment to communication, our commitment to recognition. And once we get the results from this year, we'll do the same thing. But those are all important, and we're going to look to you again to help us make meaningful changes in how we work. Your expertise is valuable, and your contributions with that expertise will be critical to our next steps. Next slide. All right, so what is this thing we've been calling FSD 2.0? You always got to do a IT-type buzzword thing, so we call what we're in today FSD 1.0, so obviously our next step is FSD 2.0. You know, over the past year, we've talked some through your directors and through your leadership and talked at these town halls about this journey we've been going on to take a look from a strategic perspective of what we do using your leadership council, the division directors, to take on this FSD 2.0 challenge. Those messages were brief. They were brief for deliberate purposes. Didn't have details because we didn't have details. We're working those today. And at the time we communicated with you, I wanted you to know what we were doing, but we didn't have results to report back to you. We'll discuss a bit more in a few minutes about the Leadership Council strategic process, but I want to share with you a few high-level objectives and goals of FSD 2.0. This is a journey, and the journey and the purpose of the journey is to improve our functional alignment, how we're organized, to provide greater clarity of how we work together, who we work with, and to make it easier for the FSD workforce, all of you, to deliver services more efficiently and more effectively to our customers. And at the end, we'll use process change and process measures to see if we're successful or not. That Leadership Council has identified 5 areas of focus in their strategic planning. Focus. Where does it make sense to consolidate and bring together teams with similar knowledge, skills, and abilities to improve customer service? Synergy. How do we align like functions to expand the benefit of the services we provide to the customers? Strategy. Are we ready for the future? Are we organized to be responsive to the changes in our work environment and our customer needs? And again, we'll keep saying it again, but the lessons learned from COVID-19 and how we organize are critical to some of that and what we do. Span of control, always a big issue. Does our organizational structure make it easy and easier for teams to deliver outstanding quality services? Are our teams empowered to make a difference in improving the customer experience? And lastly, accountability. When the customer asks, who can help me with this need? Can you explain who they need to talk to or what the processes are for acquiring the service? Clarity of functional alignment helps us identify process ownership and accountability for improvement now and the future, and ties in with that organizational change and the use of IT tools to make that easier. You see some of that in our shift out of ESSTS for ordering work into Maximo, so that we can receive work from our customers, we can track work from our customers, we don't rely on emails and phone calls because they can get lost and someone can go on vacation or on training. We can pick that work up and our customer go look there process-wise and see what the status of the work is. So all that's important. Next slide. So how are we going to get there? I said earlier about 2.0 being a journey. FSD 2.0 that we're doing now is that phased approach to learning how to incorporate new behaviors and processes into our work. The Leadership Council has modeled this new behavior for the past year. They've worked together, and I couldn't be prouder of your leaders in that effort that they've had in the first wave of FSD 2.0 that started in May 21 to discover more. They've gone into deep dives into functions to arrive together at a common understanding of what our teams do in service to the customer. They've worked on collaborating more through workshops and IPT meetings for team building and problem solving using a cross-functional approach. They've worked strategically, looking across the organization at the FSD level, not just individual divisions, for opportunities to grow our people and better serve customers into the future. And they've done that without being parochial, and that's where I think is great on their efforts, and I couldn't be prouder of them, and I couldn't have had a better team to look at what's best for the organization, not necessarily for their own divisions, but recognizing what their divisions do, the importance of it, and seeing opportunities to improve that structural alignment to improve our services to the customer. Why is this important? We talked about it before, but why it's important to improve efficiency and delivery of services to our customer, reduce costs, but it also, as it turns out, is a major WHS initiative. Ms. Miners has established FSD 2.0 as my #1 goal and your #1 goal for this year. And we'll continue to use the phased approach you see in this slide to plan and implement the next steps of FSD 2.0. Next slide. So where do we get to? Here's where it's gotten us to. This is not an organizational chart. You don't see lines on here back and forth. Rather, it is a functional alignment framework that the Leadership Council has developed that is helping provide us more clarity as we look at how functional teams can be organized within FSD. This is almost a tic-tac-toe box, right? There's 9 squares, but they focus on 3 different areas. Starting on the top, you see the customer-facing business units, those folks who day-to-day provide work in response to requests from our customers or that they see being executed on a day-to-day basis. Building operations, engineering and construction, and portfolio management. It looks a little different than today, but this is what those key areas are. Internal support business units provide day-to-day back-of-stage processes to support the top line, highlighted in gray, the things that are very critical need to happen internally to FSD for the customer-facing units to get their jobs done, whether it's human capital, the management delivery of technology, IT solutions, applications, and data within them, and resource and program management. Do we have the processes you need? Do we have the funding you need over time? And have we taken a look at long-term programs? We talked about structural deterioration. I talked about before, $40 million a year in place so that the customer-facing business units have the resources they need in time to get their jobs done. And lastly, we have support business units that are in the bottom row. WHS IT support, we have a WHS mission, EPITMD, led by Mr. Glenn Buchter, that runs IT support, not the business, not the facility-related control systems, but the rest of IT support for all of WHS. That's been assigned to FSD for some number of years. So they are a leadership support unit because they support all of WHS in the IT world. Compliance, again, support me as they make sure that the work we do meets building code, meet environmental regulations, occupational health and safety, fire code. So what we do day to day, whether it's planning, design, construction, lease management, provides safe facilities for our customers across those areas. And lastly, strategic business, helping me take a look at what we need to do as an organization to continue to improve in our services, to understand those critical initiatives we need to work on year to year to make sure we're still providing the best services to the WHS and its customers. In the coming months, you'll see the results of the Leadership Council as they continue their efforts to design organizational structures and improve cross-divisional business processes using this framework as a guide. Last slide. So what do we need from you? We need you to join us on a journey. We need you to participate. And as you do that, we need your best thoughts and your best efforts. We'd like to hear from you as you go through about what questions you might have based on the few slides we've just gone over about FSD 2.0. And we need your ideas or recommendations on how FSD teams can work together better. Part of that, as you saw on the slide before, will be as you listen to your directors and your supervisors on what this means to each of your individual organizations and how you can help get that done. As you have those come through, send us your questions. You got my email address. There's an email box at the bottom of the slide, the banner, where you can send questions or speak to your division director, speak to me, speak to your supervisors as we go forward. We have used the support of many of our GS-14 branch chiefs going through to get their ideas, and we'll continue to roll that out as we look at how we reorganize and how that affects processes and how we change processes to take advantage of this effort and improve services. Next slide. Okay. So, closing remarks. Next slide, I think. If we get the order right. So, we have a couple more things to do before. We always have a safety message, things to think about. kind of the toolbox part of the day for this meeting. And today's safety message revolves around eye injury prevention. Many thousands of years, eye injuries occur at work and at home. So the things we talk about today aren't just for the workplace, they're for when you're at your house. There are many similar modes of injury, as are the means of protection. So what typically causes eye injuries? It's those small particles that get in the eye, whether it's you using a grinder, using a drill, something like that. Those particles up, the wind blows things in your eyes, or it falls from above. Penetration injuries, nails, staples, those kind of things, staples or fragments of metal or wood come out of hammering or cutting with power tools. Chemical injuries from splash or from vapors get in your eyes. Thermal injuries can be caused by unprotected exposure to welding arcs. So whether you're at work, even in the office, in a cubicle, or out in the workplace doing work in the shops, or doing construction, or at your home raking, mowing, doing those kind of things, take a look at what you're doing. Consider the hazards, just like we do at work, and say, do I need eye protection today? Do I need that, those glasses, those lenses on to protect myself? And then make sure you follow through. Eyes are important. We only have 2 of them, and if you lose 1 or 2 of them, that can affect our lives, and we don't like to see that happen. It's just too big of an impact, so keep that part in mind. Next slide. And you kind of see it here. What can you do? We talked about it. Proper use of suitable barriers. We have occupational safety and health, and while it's there focused at work, I'm sure that Mr. Melissa, if you ask him about something at home, he'd be more than happy to provide you just some advice, okay? So I'm sure he does himself when he works at home. But they will help you at work develop those job hazard analyses that are so critical to making sure that we're safe, along with the other factors in safety that we do. When you're using that chemical product, take a look, whether it's at work with an MSDS or at home. Typically, you have safety warnings printed on the back of a can or a bottle that you're using. Read it first and make sure you follow what they're advising so you know what you're using to get adequate protection, but also so you know if you do get a spill, what you need to do to protect your eyes coming afterwards. And think about that at the building, where there's emergency eye wash stations, a construction project, you're taking it out there, or where that nearest eye wash station is. So if you do get a spill in your eye, you can handle it there on site. Years ago, when I was an ensign in the Navy, working at the auto hobby shop with my car, I had a battery blow up in my face. So didn't do it quite properly, the battery blew up. And the first thing we found out was we didn't have an eye wash station in the auto hobby shop. So keep those things in mind and make sure you know where they are, and that stuff's been done. So that was my lesson learned with the auto hobby shop is, hey, where's the eye wash station? Fortunately, as you can see today, I wasn't injured, but that was a hard lesson. Okay, next slide. Oh, okay, so it's me talking, sorry. So in June, we took a lesson learned from our folks in Lease Facilities Division and applied to all of FSD is, let's take some time off. And so while we picked maybe one of the hottest days of June, it turns out the last couple of days wasn't the hottest day of the year, but certainly was hot. We took some time off, and I was joined by some 50 or 60 fellow employees and their families from FSD to go out and watch the Nationals play the Phillies. Good chance to see Bryce Harper play. Unfortunately, he won that time, unlike the old days. So from that part, it wasn't good. But we got to spend a day out there watching the Nationals play, enjoying the weather. Once the shade came over our section of the stands, it actually became quite nice, and spent some time away to enjoy. It's a good time. We had some fun. And coming out of that, as part of what we got from the Nationals for buying that many tickets, was 10 Washington Nationals baseball caps. So each of you who attended the game went into a pool. I used a random number generator on my cell phone to pick numbers out of a hat to see how we're going to hand them out. So we're going to call the names of those 10 people out of the 30 names we had employees, I think, to receive hats up here as one final memento for what we did there. Maybe we'll do this again for the Commanders, who can afford a ticket, right? Or maybe for the Wizards, or maybe for the Capitals, and do it again because, time to time it's good to get away and it's just have some time with our fellow workers and their families to just enjoy time. So, Kwanzaa,
Yes.
I'll turn
Yes,
it over
sir.
to you.
Okay, and the winners for the Nat Caps are Blend Irfan, Roland Carter, Wade Lay, Heather Isaac, Brian Henry, Becca Guerra, Christina Mago, Kenneth Wu, and Shasha Singleton.
put them on and you can ignore the little hooks on there. All right, great. All right, good job. Oh, thank you. And I think probably I think Pete Gillespie is not here now. I think he gets a lot of credit for helping pull this thing together. So Pete, if you're out there watching, thanks, and we're looking forward to it. But please pick better weather next time. Okay, 10 minutes left, 9 minutes left. What's next?
Q&A, sir.
Okay, thank you, or Q&As?
Q&A.
Okay, so Q&A, we'll do it before. Unfortunately, unlike Teams, we can't ask for the folks out there watching to send questions in real time. But if you have questions that we didn't answer, you can certainly send them to the box. Your supervisor will get back to those. But in the meantime, we've got Rosalind, I think, and Tanika have microphones. Do any of you here have questions as we go out that you think we need to answer? Okay, Rob, stand by. Although I don't know if you need a microphone, we'll get you one.
Yeah. So you'll need to speak into the microphone so the folks.
All right, so I'm representing AWG.
Okay.
During FSD 2.0, do we have an idea if AWG is going to stay with FFD or go to ECM?
That's a good question. So that breaks up in two parts. Okay, so let's talk about that. We take a look at what the group looked at is what does AWG do and what are they good at and what areas can we take a look at where we can get work done better. So AWG as a group, I still see as staying where they are today in building operations, providing that support day-to-day, fast team, and smaller projects for our customers. That's where their sweet spot is. That's what they do well. Fast team is a simple example. We have a new Secretary of Defense, and the old one leaves on Friday afternoon, and Monday morning over the weekend, the new secretary is coming in, and we have to get in there over that period of time and get that suite ready for the new secretary, taking old paintings down, new paintings up. Do we need to repaint the place? Those kind of functions, those kind of things they do very well. But they do some larger projects as well, too. For example, I toured last Friday one of the projects they're doing, which is the facility work to support the Navy executive dining facility, who are replacing all of their appliances in their kitchen. So they're doing that kind of work. There becomes a point when projects just get too large and don't fall in the scope of really where I want AWG to be performing with that craft workforce and the planners and estimators and the project managers and the material expediters that support them. So what we took a look at is really what's the dividing line of work from a dollar figure, $200,000, $300,000, that when the scope gets large enough, that work probably needs to go over to ECM like other large projects to be executed. And we'll take advantage because that's probably going to be a contract solution anyways, not AWG with subcontractor support to be executed. So the easy answer is most of the folks, the workload, the people will stay working in that building operations group, but work as it comes in, because we have more work today than AWG can execute in a timeline that our customers are expecting to get done, will transition over to ECM like they do other major projects. What's a good example of that? I'll talk about, Hefner just briefed the new pharmacy that we built up in Center Concourse to support DiLorenzo and support the people they actually provide support for, those TRICARE recipients. So active duty, or for many of us can raise a hand, veterans or retirees who get pharmacy there will go up to there. One day in the past that might have been an AWG project, but it was just too large. We handed it off to ECM. They went down to Corps of Engineers in Birmingham to get a contractor to come up to do that work, and it's worked out very well. We met the timelines. We provided that project management focus that's so critical to the work and continue to allow AWG to focus. So I'm looking at the organization come in, allow them to focus, and continue to build on the processes they've developed in place with folks like the Army and the Marine Corps to get work done, and continue to do that so that when we do AWG work, I get that craft force. We talked about support for the Air Force on their 75th anniversary, but also the Air Force for the stand-up of the U.S. Space Force. They can focus on those critical projects where they're visible, they recognize what they're doing, and they can get that work done in a manner that meets the customer requirements. Did I answer that question, Rob? Okay, great. Next question. One down there. Ermine.
Yes. So is the structure of the FSD 2.0 done, complete, or are you still gathering input and changes might happen? And when is it going to start?
Okay, so that's what's going to start out the second part of 2.0. It is mostly done. FSD 2.0, we're going to kick off with a all-day planning session, leadership council next week, I think, or the week after, 2 weeks, to look at what that looks like and look at some of those functions. So building operations, we'll talk about that. Building operations, okay, is part of the process, and how those actual groups below that look to you is not just the Pentagon and separately not just the Mark Center, but it's all of that. Building operations runs the Pentagon. Building operations runs the Mark Center, those government-owned facilities. And how do I look at synergies between those two groups to combine, provide appropriate senior-level leadership on those groups to continue to improve those services and look for opportunities, okay, for synergies. What's a good small example? Defense Post Office, okay? They have service here. They have service at the Mark Center. Is there a way to organize that differently? You know, for example, do I have just one, like I do the mail screening facility, mail sorting facility, and then distribute mail? Another example is going to be in major utilities. How do I provide both those major utilities? We talked a bit earlier today about the challenges with the boiler plant over at the Mark Center. Is there a way I can provide that differently than I do today to get that organization done? And then allow leased facilities portion to focus on leased facilities, not in government-owned buildings. So we'll look at those. That space management group you saw on this side, there's lots of, we talked about this 1 to 2 to 3 divisions within FSD sometimes is involved in getting work done. I can almost say 4. Between space portfolio today and lease facilities today, there's tremendous overlap in places like the Mark Center and some of our lease facilities, and work gets done and involves 2 different branches within 2 different divisions, then sometimes getting work support done from FFD and sometimes other groups, even with to get work done and organized. And so we're going to take a look at what makes sense within there. We're not going to be blasting apart branches, okay? We're going to reorganize with them. So those are some of the examples of things we're going to do that is guided by that tic-tac-toe boxes we showed before up there and customer facing. And then that's the hard work to be done with support from our subject matter experts and many of you getting work done out there with your leadership in terms of how do we organize coming out of that basic structure. Okay? Good. Other questions? Kwanzaa, I think you got a couple of emails.
Yes, sir. We received 2 questions by email. The first is related to COVID-19. It's, can I get my 4th booster at DiLorenzo Clinic? I am under 50 years old without a compromised immune system, but I am concerned about coming into the office part-time, especially as there are news reports of COVID cases on the rise.
Okay, great, thanks. No, very good question. Thanks for saying that. So COVID, we talked about the pandemic, and obviously it's continuing in the endemic phase, and it's always good to follow guidance from CDC and from DOD of when we come into the building, how we work, how we function. 6-foot social distancing is still a requirement, but even with telework, we tend to manage that. And the work that we do with the management of HVAC systems and with the work that our custodians do every day with routine disinfecting and the work that we're responsible to do as an individual in our personal workspace to do that surface cleaning, all contribute to keeping ourselves safe and keeping ourselves healthy, along with thinking about what are my symptoms today? Do I have COVID-like symptoms? Maybe I should stay home, take that rapid test, make sure I'm okay before I come into the office. If I haven't been vaccinated and up to date, I'm getting my weekly testing before I come into the office, all those kind of things. So we start off on that basis to follow those protocols, and that still is coming out from DOD leadership in terms of what we do out of PNR. COVID rates are up and down in the area. Prince George's County, Montgomery County recently went on the CDC scale to red. Don't know how long that will hold out. Yet Maryland, or not Maryland, Virginia counties pretty much are staying in that yellow range, which leads us to HB-Com Bravo, and seem to be flat. But it's a good time to think about that. Everybody's always concerned when schools start again, which started this week for some municipalities, that the opportunity for COVID spread will come back again for children, especially for those families who have chosen not to have their children vaccinated, even though they've been approved for all ages, I think, whether for emergency use or for regular use. So, to back to your question, The guidance we have for DoD employees is that we are required to be up to date. A new definition of fully vaccinated is I have had all the shots that are required for me by CDC guidance. So I think current guidance, which DoD employees can take advantage of, is I've had my 1 or 2 primary shots for whichever type of shot vaccine I'm getting, with booster shots depending on your age and medical condition. Now, what they're saying down at DiLorenzo, and by the way, DiLorenzo also now has Novavax in, but you need to call down and schedule it because of the way those shots and those vaccines are delivered. Once you open a vial, they got to deliver 10 shots fairly quickly, but they can schedule Novavax. Just as a side message here, if you had chosen not to be vaccinated because of your strongly held religious beliefs, even though those kind of requirements are suspended right now in terms of enforcement, Novavax is now available. Novavax is not made using stem cell material, and so that's another consideration for you. But if you fall kind of outside the category for that second booster shot, everybody's eligible for the first booster shot, so by definition, we all should have had the first booster shot, depending on what type of vaccine we selected. DiLorenzo is probably not going to talk to you, is not going to tell you to go away. So you can go on their website, you can schedule that shot, even if you're under 50 without an underlying health condition. I don't think DiLorenzo is going to turn you away. So I would say give it a shot, and so to speak. And if you have an issue, let us know, and we'll work that. But that's kind of what we're being told.
Okay. Thank you, sir. The second question is related to FSD 2.0. I believe there are business processes within FSD that have created inefficiencies, and I would like to be a part of any process improvement discussions. Will I be able to participate in any of the discussions regarding FSD 2.0?
Yeah. Thanks for the question. I'm not sure where that came from, but the answer is yes. The hard work starts with getting the organizational structure in place. Take a look at how we're going to organize, how we're going to work, how we try and start making some efficiencies in the structure internally for getting work done. But then the hard work then is taking that and looking at existing processes and modifying them to fit within that new structure with the idea of reducing steps in a process to get it done. We can't get it done at the Leadership Council. The Leadership Council needs your help and your support. We started an effort over the last 6 months with our subject matter experts who became part of that study process, but then the hard work continues. We'll build in the processes done by people like Space Portfolio Division, Lease Facilities, and Federal Facility Division, who already have a great list of process charts in place for getting work done. So they'll be pulling those out, looking at them and saying, okay, how does this change what we're doing? How do we make those things more better? And we'll be taking a look at a lot of you who know what your existing processes are to capture them and put them down in writing, flow them out so we can use those in the future. So we have that large catalog of processes, so when we do something, we know how we're going to do it, who's going to do it, how we measure it, how we provide communications back to our customer, and how we get it done. Thanks.
Okay.
Other questions? Well, gee, we're only 3 minutes over. That's good news. So good schedule. Let me see if I have anything else written down. No, I think we're done, right?
Yes, sir.
So thanks, everybody. Before we close, I appreciate everybody hanging in there. A lot of information in an hour and a half. We'll continue to do it this way, and we'll go forward. So in the next couple of town halls, we'll talk about our continued development of FSD 2.0. A reminder that Ms. Miners is having a WHS town hall on the 25th of August. Hopefully it's been deconflicted with Mr. Candido's retirement as we celebrate his service to the country. And then we'll get further information out on, receive our results from the FEV survey, and we'll come back to you one of the next couple of town halls and tell you what you told us in the FEV survey and what we, the leadership of FSD, are going to do in response to that, what policies, what programs we're going to undertake over the next year to improve the way we do business. So again, thank you for your time. Thank you for your patience. We'll see how well this worked in terms of this hybrid organization. We're allowed to have 100 people in the Pentagon Auditorium as long as we're in HPCon Bravo. If we go to HPCon Charlie, the rules all change again as we try and tamp down the spread of the COVID-19. But we'll certainly continue to do it this way as we move forward in the future, because as a reminder, your presence matters. And when you need to come in, when you need you have come in and get that done, we'll continue to do telework for those folks so it makes sense. So again, everybody, thanks for coming. Enjoy the rest of your day. Enjoy your weekend. And we'll talk to you soon. Thanks.